My Mount Rushmore?
Yeah.
Humperdinck,
Yeah.
Humperdinck.
Yeah, that pretty much.
That's how I'm going with this.
Yeah, I think that clears it up. So there's a lot of talk on the internet about Mount Rushmore of wrestling.
I've noticed that.
Mount Rushmore of managers.
Quarterbacks, coaches, it's
Yeah.
a big thing.
So my Mount Rushmore of wrestling managers, you could, I could do the, obvious thing that Dad's number, definitely on Mount Rushmore. But so my 4 managers for Mount Rushmore.
Your 4 horsemen of the manager apocalypse.
So Bobby Heenan probably was my all-time favorite manager, and Sir Oliver Humperdinck, they're tied. Bobby Heenan, I used to wait Monday nights to watch him on Primetime Wrestling, him and Gorilla Monsoon. And Sir Oliver Humperdinck, he was so funny, knew him as a kid. And then Paul Ellering, because he managed the Road Warriors. And then Jimmy Dillon, because he managed the 4 Horsemen. And that would be my 4 Mount Rushmore. Thank you.
I would go with my 4. This is coming from a perspective of knowing what managers really do, because we can look at this a little bit differently than most other people because we know how the game's actually played. I'm not going to put Dad in this because it's the obvious prejudicial Gary Hart's son putting Gary Hart at the top of the mountain. 1, I would go with Paul Ellering, because if you really understand what a manager does, and a manager most of the time, a good one, isn't out there to draw attention to himself, although Paul kind of did that with the way he would tie his shirt and the leather pants, but he would stand up for Hawk and Animal. If there was a problem with the finish or with the money or anything else, Paul wasn't afraid to
You're
go.
saying with The Office?
Yeah, with The Office. Paul was not afraid to go to the office and say, hey, make this right, or change this, or we're out of here. And he was the first one to say, we're not just going to work for the NWA. We're going to work for the AWA. We're going to work in Japan. We're going to work wherever we want to. So because they got that huge contract, I think like 85 or 86, which I think probably caused some friction in the dressing room, but a lot of that was Paul. And Paul could keep Hawk in line. Because Hawk was a wonderful guy, but he was known to kind of go off at times. And Paul would be a guy that would have been able to handle a Bruiser Brody, much like Dad. So Paul stood for Hawk and Animal. Number 2, I would say it's Bobby Heenan. And Bobby really didn't do what traditional managers do, because Bobby was more of an office guy, where Bobby wasn't really scouring, looking at the card, oh, this guy's being misused, or we can take this guy and package him this way, or make him that way, or make him this way, or we can bring him in. Bobby didn't really do any of that. Bobby was more of the guy that if the office put you with him, you immediately got noticed. Because keep in mind, when Kurt Hennig got there in like 88 or 89, Kurt got over. But when he took the Intercontinental title, I think it was from Tito or Martel when he won in that tournament, when Bobby got with him, that immediately legitimized him. So Bobby, if he, just by him walking down the aisle with you, people took you seriously and you got noticed. So even though Bobby wasn't trying to develop you, he could give you a rub. So he gets it for that. 3 would be Mr. J.J. Dillon, who is a very nice guy and a tremendous wrestling mind, and much like Dad, was working in the arena and in the office, because a lot of times during that Horseman run, there would be times, because JJ was not only working in the arenas at night, he was in the office in the daytime, where Ricky and Arn and Tully would be a little bit upset with the way things were being handled and the way things were being lined out, and saying he, meaning Dusty, he's really pushing the envelope here. And so JJ would have to calm everybody down and then go to the Jimmy Crockett the very next day and say, you may want to be aware of a problem that could be developing here. And then Ricky would go have dinner with Crockett, and everything would be smoothed over. So that's a real manager. And another one, Jim Coronet, because he might have only had one team that was prominent in Bobby and Dennis, or Bobby and Stan, both great. But even when they were getting annihilated and abused in WCW, Jimmy was always standing and knocking on the door, trying to make sure that at this time Bobby and Stan were protected, because when Jim Herd was determined to get Jim to leave managing and become a broadcaster, Jimmy said, fine, I'll drop Stan and Bobby, and let's make them members of the Horsemen. I'm all for that. He was always pushing for Bobby and Stan fighting for him. He tried to get him in Starrcade that one year and said, well, if they can get beat 3 times, it ain't going to hurt them, but they'll be the best matches. So guys that stand up for their guys and put the rub on their guys, that's why those 4 gentlemen are my 4 Mount Rushmore managers. I'm going to take Dad off because obviously he was the best. If we went to +1, we could put him in there.
Yeah, and I think the all-time favorites are all around Purdue.
And Skandar Akbar.
Oh yeah.
See, there's so
Skander
many.
Skander Ekberg, definitely.
But if I had to whittle it down, yeah.
Humpy would want you to hit that like and subscribe button.
And so would Scan.